Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Pitt County Board of Commissioners meeting for November 21st. At this time, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if everyone could sign in who is present.
And Chair Fitzpatrick, I'd like to make a motion to excuse Commissioner Lauren White for illness.
It has been moved and properly second. Commissioner Nunley, after you vote, we will move to excuse Commissioner White.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
Now, are we voting for the motion now? Instead of bouncing.
And that motion passes unanimously. If everyone could please stand for the invocation and the pledge.
Shall we pray? Turn to God. We come first of all to thank you. We thank you for life, health, and strength. We ask now that you come into this meeting and have us to make the decision that will be pleasing to thee. In thy holy name we pray. Amen.
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second. If we could all vote, please. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Manager, do we have any public addresses to the board for this evening?
You have no public addresses to the board.
Thank you. Moving on to presentations, if we could go down front for the Employee of the Month presentation.
And while we're going down, if Channing Ford would come forward. Sit right beside the chair. Mr. Chairman, it is my pleasure to present to you this evening November's Employee of the Month, Channing Ford with Veteran Services. This is one of my favorite things to do. We have an Employee of the Month program where other county employees nominate their peers. We have a committee of peers who make a recommendation to me each month for County Employee of the Month for somebody who has gone above and beyond their regular call of duty. And this month, I couldn't be more thrilled to present this award to Channing Ford. Her recommender said that recently Channing helped a widow of a veteran receive benefits, and as a result, the client was able to buy a house. The client thanked Channing through a letter for her diligence, as she was the only one who was able to successfully complete that paperwork. Channing is knowledgeable, patient, and kind. She is a tremendous asset to the Veteran Services Program and to Pitt County, says her nominator. So with that, the chairman will present you with a certificate that reads, Certificate of Recognition for Employee of the Month, November 2022, presented to Channing Ford, Veteran Services, in recognition of your dedication and exemplary service to Pitt County government and the citizens we serve. And enclosed with that is a $100 check. You will present. Not so fast. Whoops. Thank you. I'm going to leave that in my hand. And with that, the next thing on the agenda are the Governor's Volunteer Service Awards. If Alice Keene would come forward, we can step to the side and Alice Keene will make these presentations.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Each year, Pitt County has a chance to work with the Governor's Office in selecting outstanding volunteers across the state of North Carolina. We are very privileged to be able to honor 6 volunteers in our community tonight. I'd like to thank our committee who works on this each year. It does take a matter of time. Jennifer Congleton, Administration for Chaplaincy and Volunteer Services at ECU Health. Dwayne Cooper, Executive Director of United Way of Pitt County, and Jennifer Lanier Coward, Associate Director for Pitt County Community Schools and Recreation. Also, I would like to thank the people that take the time to nominate very worthy volunteers in our county. And if you nominated somebody tonight, would you stand or just wave your hand so we can give you a round of applause? There we go. We're honored tonight to have our chair and our county manager to make these presentations. And the certificate each will receive reads like this: Governor's Award for Volunteer Service. This is to certify that said volunteer or volunteers is hereby awarded the highest designation of appreciation for distinguished volunteer service to the people and the state of North Carolina, and is to be granted and extended all honors and courtesies provided by this office, entitled thereto by the Certificate of Recognition and Appreciation, our Governor, Roy Cooper. At this time, I would like to ask you, when your name is called, to please come forward and receive your certificate and your pen. Our first nominee is John Brooks with Brooks Drywall. Is John here? I'm going to tell you a little bit about John. John appreciates the community support that's made a two-generation family business a tremendous success. He believes in giving back to Pitt County, where he and his staff collaborate with local volunteer faith-based organizations to support all types of local volunteers and their service to vulnerable populations. John and his teammates help to deliver bulk food and supplies, and recently provided at no cost for labor or materials to install drywall at a gutted facility for a local feeding program. We thank John Brooks, his son, and Brooks Drywall. Our next recipient is Mr. Frank Crawley, and unfortunately, Mr. Crawley was out of town, but he sent the volunteer coordinator at ECU Health, Chad Tucker, excuse me, to receive his award. Frank has been a volunteer at ECU Health Center for 9 years. He goes above and beyond twice a week in his area of patient transport. He engages with patients, team members, and visitors with the utmost respect. Frank is always recruiting other volunteers from the community. He has received the Volunteer of the Month and Volunteer of the Year recognition from his department at ECU Health, and shared over 3,000 hours of service. And we thank Mr. Crawley. Thank you, Chad, for receiving his certificate. Our next recipient is Abbott Hunsaker. Mr. Hunsaker will come forward. Abbott co-founded the Winterville Historical and Art Society back in 1978. Over the years, he has provided critical administrative services to the board and is currently serving as its treasurer. In addition to many administrative roles, Abbott can be found cutting grass, repairing the landscaping, delivering newsletters, and taking important photographs. He has been a community servant for the Winterville community for many years. Thank you, Abbott. Our next recipient is Lisa Jordan, and if Lisa would come forward. Lisa's been a longtime volunteer and advocate for adults with special needs in Pitt County. In the midst of COVID-19, Lisa realized that many of these adults were scared, isolated, and sad from the abrupt shutdown of many activities. At her own expense, she began a personalized Pen Pals birthday club with letters including crosswords, word searches, crafts, and recipes. 1 month of postage cost would have been so great that Lisa hand-delivered 120 letters herself. Wow. She's also a key volunteer for the 2021 Night to Shine, Tim Tebow Foundation Prom, the Action Club, and Beyond Capernaum. Lisa, thank you so much for all you do in our community. Our next recipient is Love a Sea Turtle Leadership Advocacy Student Training. And I think somebody's gonna have to open the door because those guys had to stand in the hall. We certainly want to recognize these young folks.
Love a Sea Turtle can come right up and form the next row in front of us.
I think that's so good.
Despite COVID-19, this last youth leadership conducted 96 separate and distinct volunteer and youth leadership development events in helping to engage NC citizens and thousands of volunteer service hours of learning in a time when our region needed it most. This youth team helped remove thousands of pounds of debris, educated the public on ways to help protect and preserve our environment, provided a platform for minority youth voices, and helped to feed our most vulnerable neighbors. Now, if any of us worry about the future, look at this youth group who is working hard in our community. Thank you so much. Our next recipient is a commissioner, Commissioner Mary Perkins Williams, and I believe Commissioner Williams is gonna have to come down front.
And I'm gonna have Love a Sea Turtle stand right to the side as soon as she takes that third picture so that we can get the next recipient up. If you'll just park right here and step over a little bit further down. And then there.
Mary spends countless hours in providing services for residents in northern Pitt County, as well as working with the Northern Pitt County Improvement Association. This association provides educational and employment training to north of the river residents. Mary and her team not only provide the emotional and spiritual care for their neighbors, they also provide critically needed items such as emergency food, personal care items, and a neighborhood facility for community unity events. Commissioner Perkins, thank you so much for all you do for our residents across Pitt County. We're so proud of each one of our recipients for this year, and I believe we're going to take a group picture and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all that you do. And very soon, we'll have nominations open for 2023. Thank you so much.
Come in for the picture, please.
Okay.
Squeeze closer together. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Thank you for being here and watching. Appreciate it so much. You'll stay here. And Vice Chairman Albright, if you'll come down front. The next item on our agenda is also another special recognition this evening. And one that we are excited to celebrate, but sad at the same time because we are saying farewell to two of our commissioners.
Can we,
This evening,
Madam,
yes,
can we approve them
please do.
before you present? We were thinking we'd wait, but we thought that might be a little,
Go ahead.
you know, I say move.
Second. Second.
Voting's
Oh, okay, we can vote here.
Okay,
Okay.
and we can assume that you voted to say yes.
Okay, Jordan, you okay?
Yeah.
Just do it by hand.
Can we do it by show of hands,
By show of
please?
hands.
All opposed?
Okay.
That's none.
They work.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We will start with a resolution honoring our Vice Chairman, Alex Albright. honoring him and appreciating him for his service as vice chair and his service on the board. And staff has prepared a resolution that I'd like to read and then have the chairman present to you, and it reads, Office of the Pitt County Board of Commissioners Resolution of Appreciation honoring Alex Albright. Whereas Alex Albright has served faithfully and honorably as a Pitt County Commissioner from December 2018 to December 2022. And whereas Alex Albright served as Vice Chairman in 2021. And whereas through 2022. And whereas Alex Albright was influential in allocating the American Rescue Plan Act and opioid funding. And whereas Vice Chairman Alex Albright was influential in the glyphosate and litter campaigns. And whereas Vice Chairman Alex Albright was influential in projects that included the Animal Shelter Expansion Project, the establishment of a passport agency through the Register of Deeds Office. And whereas during his tenure, Alex Albright was passionate about the environmental projects, which included 55 miles of snagging along the creeks in Pitt County to improve drainage and clear the waterways. And whereas Alex Albright held Pitt County staff to the highest standards in both punctuation and language. And whereas during his tenure, Alex Albright aided the citizens of Pitt County in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas during Alex Albright's tenure, the county actively participated in promoting Census 2020. And whereas during his tenure, the county completed the NC 43 South Land Use Plan. And whereas during Alex Albright's tenure, Pitt County was named an All-America County by the National Civic League, being the only county in the state and nation to earn this designation in 2020. And whereas during his tenure, Alex Albright was also an integral part of the Pitt County government by serving on various boards and commissions, such as the Board of Health, the Metropolitan Planning Organization as an alternate, the Rural Planning Organization, the Soil and Water Board as liaison, and the Mideast Commission. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pitt County Board of Commissioners does hereby commend Alex Albright for providing stalwart and able leadership and diligent service to the board and to the citizens of Pitt County during his tenure as commissioner, adopted this the 21st day of November 2022, signed by Mike Fitzpatrick, chairman, and attested by Kimberly Hines, clerk to the board. If you will present that.
I think the most important thing that I did during this time was join my colleagues here in hiring this woman as our manager.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You're done.
I can go home now? Is that right?
No.
You still have to finish this meeting. Commissioner Albright, will you stay for one picture real quick? Actually, if you will hold, we'll get the picture and just hold that for 1 second. And now, our final resolution of appreciation this evening honors our chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick, for his role and service as chairman on our Board of Commissioners this past year, as well as a commissioner for the last 4-year term. And this resolution reads, Office of Pitt County Board of Commissioners Resolution of Appreciation honoring Mike Fitzpatrick. Whereas Mike Fitzpatrick has served faithfully and honorably as a Pitt County Commissioner from December 2018 to December 2022. And whereas Mike Fitzpatrick served as chairman of the Board of Commissioners in 2022 and served as vice chairman in 2021. And whereas, as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick was influential in allocating the American Rescue Plan Act and opioid funding. And whereas, as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick adopted a fiscally sound budget with no tax increase. And whereas, as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick enhanced benefits for all county employees. And whereas, as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick was influential in the glyphosate and litter campaigns. And whereas, as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick oversaw the relocation of the Register of Deeds office. And as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick led the board in the hiring of a new county manager. And whereas, as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick was influential in projects that include courthouse improvements, the Animal Shelter Expansion Project, and the establishment of the passport agency through the Register of Deeds office. And whereas as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick developed security upgrades to protect the citizens and Board of Commissioners during public meetings. And whereas as chairman, Mike Fitzpatrick consistently maintained order and decorum in conducting the business of the board in an effective, timely, and efficient manner. And whereas during his tenure, Mike Fitzpatrick aided the citizens of Pitt County in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas during his tenure, Mike Fitzpatrick was influential in the transition of the 5-member Industrial Development Commission Board into a Department of County Government. And whereas during Mike Fitzpatrick's tenure, the county adopted the NC 43 South Land Use Plan. And during his tenure, the county actively participated in promoting Census 2020. And whereas during Mike Fitzpatrick's tenure, Pitt County was named All-America County by the National Civic League, being the only county in the state and nation to earn this designation in 2020. And whereas during his tenure, Mike Fitzpatrick was an integral part of Pitt County government by serving on various boards and commissions, including the Development Commission, the Vidant Medical Center Board of Trustees, the Pitt Greenville Airport Authority, the ABC Board, and the Emergency Medical Services Oversight Committee. Now therefore be it resolved that the Pitt County Board of Commissioners does hereby commend Mike Fitzpatrick for providing stalwart and able leadership and diligent service to the board and to the citizens of Pitt County during his tenure as commissioner. Adopted this the 21st day of November 2022, signed by Alex Albright, Vice Chairman, Pitt County Board of Commissioners, and attested by Kimberly W. Hines, Clerk to the Board. Thank you so much for your service. Anything you'd like to say?
We were pretty busy this last year, I guess. I just want to say thank you to everybody who helped me along the way, and I think, Janice, maybe you will agree, finally got me trained and I'm leaving. So this 4 years have gone really fast, and I'm very thankful for this. This is not goodbye, but probably see you later. Appreciate my wife and father-in-law for being here tonight, and have a young child at home, so for the next little while I want to soak up as much time with her as I can. So my hope is that over the last 4 years that you know, the county has become maybe a little bit better than it was prior to getting involved, and I'm looking forward to seeing the commission and everybody continue to make Pitt County a better place to live. So thank you very much. All right, moving on. If we could now move on to the public hearings. First one being the Economic Development Incentive. Ms. Andrews.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This is in consideration of Project Gen 4. They have a planned expansion to include $34.5 million in new real and personal property, the retention of 158 jobs, and the creation of 14 new jobs. We are recommending an economic development incentive grant in the amount of equivalent to 80% of the net increase in ad valorem taxes by the company for an 8-year period with a cap of $1 million. For the Pitt County expansion, this project includes $34.5 million to be invested to build a new facility to accommodate the company's growth in beverage, warehousing, and distribution. This existing Pitt County industry does not currently require an air quality permit, and there is none anticipated for this expansion. The company is a distributor for one of the largest beverage companies in North America, and that corporation, as part of its overall environmental, social, and corporate governance plan, has aggressive goals to increase usage of recycled materials and low-carbon alternatives to traditional plastics. They are also committed to increasing existing requirements for sustainable practices in warehousing and distribution, which refers to the company for this project Gen 4. The incentive would be contingent upon investment of the $34.5 million, the retention of the 158 existing jobs, as well as the creation of 14 new jobs at or above Pitt County's average salary. And the grant agreement will be required to include these contingencies as well as full compliance with any and all applicable environmental regulations. So we respectfully request that you move to approve the incentive for Gen 4 for the consideration described in a legally binding incentive agreement to be developed by the county attorney and executed by the county manager.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Madam Manager, do we have anyone signed up this evening?
We have no one signed up for this hearing.
At this time, I'll close the public hearing and entertain any motions.
Move to approve.
Second it.
It has been moved and properly seconded. If everyone could please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Rhodes.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. First, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I really appreciate your service and more importantly, your support over the last 4 years. You will be missed. We have one rezoning request tonight, and this is your first time through this new process. You're dealing with a sand mine proposal that is through a conditional district rezoning versus your stereotypical quasi-judicial process where we would usually be swearing in people and taking testimony. Tonight, you'll treat this as a standard rezoning process, as a legislative decision, and you can talk with people, and people can certainly voice their opinions and so forth during this legislative public hearing. So with that, this request is by Stroud Engineering. It is to rezone approximately 33 acres owned by Jones and Smith Contractors. This is located off Caraway Lane, just east of Grifton. And again, the conditional district rezoning, the property is already zoned as rural agricultural. We're going to rural agricultural conditional district expressly for the operation of a sand mine. And again, your locational map here, you can see this is just off Jolly Old Field Road to the east of the town of Grifton and before you get into Craven County. This is a site map. This is the 33 acres bounded in the dashed line here. You can see two different areas shown as far as our land use plan is concerned. The darker area is the ag open natural resource area, and the lighter green is rural residential. And again, the darker green primarily corresponds with the 100-year floodplain. On to your existing land uses. This is a fairly rural area. There are some residential lots just to the north. You can see those in gold here. A few others scattered along Jolly Old Field Road. These are primarily off of Rock Road that is just to the north as well. And again, as a reminder, these particular districts that are shown within our land use plan are intended for a number of different uses. And this, the primary agricultural open natural resource area coincides primarily with the 100-year floodplain. Again, these areas are rich with good sand, and in turn, just like north of the river, this is another area of the county that has large deposits of sand off the Neuse River and Continua Creek. Your zoning there, as I've mentioned, is already rural agricultural. The entire area that's shown on the map is. And this district is intended for primarily low-density development. And in the last statement, you'll see the district reflects the diverse nature of land uses with predominantly rural areas and permits a wide array of land uses. And this particular request for tonight is expressly for a sand mine. Our zoning ordinance does already cite certain development standards that run with sand mines. You've seen these before. 100-foot separation from the edge of the pit to the property boundary. Hours of operation are limited if blasting is involved, and this is typically not the case with a sand mine. Screening is required. That's part of the site plan that we'll talk about in a minute. And also, this is just the first step. The developer would also need to go through the state to receive the appropriate sand mining permit. So a little bit about the site. This is the site area. Again, close to 33 acres. There's a haul road that would be involved, although it's very close to another road, Cletus Hart Road, just to the north here. The haul road will actually provide access out to Jolly Old Field Road. So quite a long haul road you'll see there in this dark gray line that leads out to Jolly Old Field Road, a state maintained road. We also have received notice from the developer that in fact, if you look back at this map, there is a smaller area to the north that they had proposed excavation for the sand mine. They have requested now that that would be removed. You'll see a comment about that in some of the staff comments after receiving this word. So the area here, just to the north, should no longer be considered as part of this request for excavation. The entire site is requested for rezoning. That would be removed if you move forward tonight. So the site area, 33 acres. Two potential areas, as I've mentioned, the one to the north has since been requested to be removed. So really about 6 to 8 acres. The yellow area to the south would be the one or sole excavation site. We do require a 100-foot undisturbed buffer surrounding the entire site. There are also some blue line streams on site that would require a riparian buffer, 50 foot on either side, that have to remain undisturbed. As far as staff's recommendation, we feel like it is consistent with the land use plan, and there are some compelling reasons why we believe that. And in turn, there's also been some previous sand mining operations in the area. We believe it is reasonable and in the public interest for this type of use to go in. The planning board, on the other hand, voted in denial. The board did agree that it is consistent with our land use plan, but recommended denial of this request. So with that, Mr. Chair, staff is still recommending these two motions to adopt the following consistency statement, as we've discussed, and that it's also reasonable and in the best interest of the community. Motion number 2, to approve the request to a conditional district that would allow for the sand mining operation. Some additional conditions, and this is where staff has also added information in about the site plan. The site plan would be required, a very detailed site plan before any zoning permits would be approved. The second statement there, the proposed future sand mine area on the northern portion of the parcel shall be removed from the site plan and not utilized for any of the sand mining operations. Since it is within the 100-year floodplain, a flood development or floodplain development permit would be required. Operating permits required from the state. Also, there are some riparian buffers that need to be shown. Driveway permit. Anytime these type of operations are bring a lot of truck traffic in, a driveway permit from DOT would be required. Screening as well would be required along the perimeter of the site. And with that, Mr. Chair, we're ready for the public hearing.
At this time, go ahead and open the public hearing. Madam Manager, do we have anyone signed up?
You have 14 people signed up to speak, beginning with Kathy Westbrook.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and read your statement. Pitt County welcomes all comments on this proposed rezoning. Consistent with the board's rules of procedure, each speaker will be allowed up to 5 minutes to speak. I will keep your time. Please state your name and address prior to speaking.
And while your first speaker is coming up, I'll make the board aware that at your place settings are letters from 6 individuals who are opposed to this mining permit, and they are at your table and will be included in their entirety in your minutes.
My name is Catherine Westbrook, and we own the property at 1842. Can you hear me? At 1842 Rock Road, where we are in the process of building our new home. Those plans are with the builder right now, so economic times. This road is, Rock Road is 1.5 mile loop road off of NC 118. The east end from Jolly-O Field is the most populated and is approximately 9/10 of a mile. The sand pit traffic will come off their Hall Road onto Jolly-O Field, then east or west onto Rock Road. Within this section of Rock Road, there are 20 homes, with 3 in process, along with 32 homes on the side streets. 55 families whose quality of life will be changed forever if this rezoning request is approved. This is a very tranquil area, an active neighborhood that will no longer exist for couples and kids to walk, jog, stroll your babies, or take kids for a bike ride. From 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., our roads will become our enemies. Our children and our elderly will not be safe to be near them. No more quiet, peaceful days of sitting outside in my swing, enjoying the country air, watching the mama next door, walking down the road with one in a stroller and 2 others on their bike with their helmets and their training wheels. Gone is the tranquility of our neighborhood, as it is replaced by the noise, the speed, and the increased traffic from dump trucks and mining equipment. This is mostly a residential area, and since 2007, when the previous sand mine was permitted, there have been 13 new homes built with 3 more in process, the majority within the past 4 years. The previous planning staff's presentation focused on the area southwest of the parcel and the few homes located near the Hall Road, with the 50-plus homes in the north were ignored, yet are closer to the parcel where the sand pit will be located. J&S say only 1 excavator and no statement of capacity. How many machines can this one replace? 1 bulldozer taken in and out as needed, and a few more heavy trucks on our road each month. My property value will go down due to the noise in my backyard from the pit and the diesel exhaust and the noise from the dump trucks on the road in front of my house. The North Carolina law requires one to complete a disclosure statement when selling property. I will have to check yes to number 22, which states, is there any noise, odor, smoke, etc. from commercial, industrial, or military sources which affects this property? We have already witnessed the steady stream of the big red dump trucks traveling the Rock Road. You heard them before you saw them, quickly gaining speed, increasing speed on the straight stretch of the road, increased traffic, high rates of speed, increased potential accidents for the side roads and the driveways. The planning board meeting, Jones and Smith representative would have you believe we have a tremendous amount of farm equipment on our roads and in our neighborhoods. He attempted to make an equal comparison with the dump truck traffic, when in reality, farm equipment is on our roads less than 10 days a year. J&S will only maintain their haul roads. They will not maintain the Jolly-O Field or the Rock Road, which is already in poor shape, as you can see by the pictures that I've added to your package. Severe flooding during Floyd, Matthew, and Florence. Since these times, the terrain has changed by logging. What effect will this have on the next flood? Parcel number 27898, next to the Hall Road, was bought out by FEMA. The home was destroyed, and Pitt County owns the property. Lack of access to the community water. There are many homes at the end of Rock Road and all on Jolly-O Field have no community water access. They're all on water wells. There are concerns regarding contamination and the wells going dry. The only information that has been shared freely is the requirements by the county and the state. Representatives for Jones and Smith have been very vague when asked questions, and answers came as a maybe, or can't hold me to that, it will be business driven, or I haven't got that number yet. They are requesting that you rezone and write them a blank check in which we will never know up front just how destructive they will be. And they have already acknowledged that they will be requesting rezoning on additional acreage. And one other thing I'd like to say is that Hall Road is not on the parcel that they're asking to be rezoned. It is another piece of land that they own, that they're gonna travel through.
Thank you.
Okay?
David Tate. David Tate, or Toot, did I say that last name wrong?
David Tootin, Stroud Engineering.
Yes, sir.
May I request to go last to answer any questions?
That'd be fine. Barton Horn.
I'm with Jones and Smith Contractors. I'll follow David should there be any.
Okay. Alyssa or Tracy Banks.
I'd like to say back to the question period, please.
Question period.
Billy Threlkt. Threckeld.
My name is Billy Threlkeld, and my husband and I live at 1902 Hardison Street. Thank you for allowing us to speak this evening. We have lived in our home for 18 years. It very much reminds me of where I grew up in rural Kentucky. When you walk outside at night, the only thing you see is the moon and the stars. The only thing you hear is animals moving through the forest or nothing. If you open a mining project there, we're going to lose this. I can't speak for everyone here, but I would like to think that many of the people here will agree with me when I say we live where we do because we like the peace and quiet, the ability to commune with nature, and to not feel like you're part of the rat race of the city. It's a thriving local community with new homes being built. There are a lot of families. These families walk on the road for exercise and as a family activity. Dogs are walked on this road. 500 plus large trucks a month are going to make this dangerous, if not impossible. There's small children in this area. You cannot put a monetary value on the life of a child that could be injured or killed by a large truck. And speaking of the road, it's already in poor shape with potholes and cracks from the routine traffic. I cannot possibly stand up to the heavy equipment and large trucks that will be driving on it every day. Who's going to pay to fix it, and how often will it need to be fixed? Put yourselves in our places, please. How would you like to have a noisy industrial complex move in yards from your back door? Our home is currently our sanctuary. It will no longer be this if this mining operation is allowed to open. Please vote no, and please put all pressure you can on the city of Grifton to abide by your no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lawrence Malal.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Lawrence Malal. I am in 411 Little John Drive, Wilson, North Carolina. I'm tied to this area because I grew up there. "52 years, known the area. I'm heir to a lot of property in that area. My dad just passed away a month ago. I think it's a mistake to put a sand mine there. It's a very fragile area. They showed you on the map earlier what the floodplain was, 100-year floodplain. The 100 years come around mighty quick because we've seen it several times there where the floodwaters have come in. I've driven on those roads back there and run into the California National Guard looking for people during the flood time. So it's a fragile area ecologically. What the map didn't show you earlier is that that 100-year floodplain actually wraps around the street where Providence Lane is. So if you look at it, that little section of land there where Providence Lane is almost like an island in the 100-year floodplain. I don't think it's a good idea to put a sand pit there in that area where it's already flooding, and it's really not a good space. It's feeding into the Neuse River eventually. Sand pit will not help with drainage. It will not help with the wells. I would plead with you not to allow a sand pit in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wayne or Mary Briley.
Thank you.
I would like to invite all of you to get in your cars and go down Stokestown St. John's, cross over 118, and just go and look at all the beautiful houses that are in this neighborhood. We have chosen to live in that part of the county because it is quiet. It is very serene. It is beautiful. And we love it where we are. We have taken care of that part of Pitt County for many, many years. There's new construction, there's new homes, and they're beautiful. They're just moderate, homes. Nobody is out there building, the 3-story mansions like we see here in Greenville. We are there in a very rural, as you have pointed out, a very rural area that we love to live in. And we love the peace and the quiet where we live. So please, drive out there. Look at where we live. Look at how we live. It is wonderful. It is an enviable place to live. Anybody would just love to live in our houses. Most of the houses are well-built, well-constructed homes that have been built in the 70s. And, the wood is solid. The construction is solid. And we hate to lose all of that. As Mr. Malal said, that floodplain goes right around Providence Lane. And I'm the first house on Providence Lane. And there's a tiny little area there. And, if there's another flood, it's just going to come and envelop us. And that would be very dangerous for us. We're very concerned about this. You know the Grifton area. You know how it floods. You know how people have had to reconstruct their homes in that area. And as I have stated, the roads there are terrible. And that's what I want you to look at, too, as you ride there. As you drive there, look at the poor condition of the roads and these trucks. And, Stroud Engineering can say, yes, we're going to talk to these people about the way they drive. Well, I'm a middle school teacher, and I talk to my students about being quiet, and I ask you, do you really think that does any good? No, it does not. Well, it's the same way with the truck drivers. They're going to barrel down those roads. They're going to barrel out of the Hall Road onto Jolly Old Field, onto Rock Road, just as fast as they possibly can, because that is their job. And I don't care who tells them to slow down and be careful. They're going to be barreling through. I've been by other sand pit roads, and I have just about been hit because those people are pulling out. I've had to pull over. I've had to, get on the grass because they are just barreling through. So this is just not a good idea for the part of Pitt County that we have treasured and that we have taken care of and that we have lived in for all these years. So I just hope that you will deny this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony Barwick. Tony Barwick. Is there anyone in the hall? Okay. Steve Lewis. Steve Lewis. Alvin Gammon.
Hello, my name is Alvin Gammon, and I have a home on 1860 Rock Road. I just think it's a bad idea for this mining thing and drop property values and stuff, and just pretty much everything these other guys have said. I support that. Thank you.
Jeff Sampson or Simpson.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Simpson. I live on 6580 Cletus Hart Road. The north corner of this 33-acre site they want rezoned. Property lines from right into mine. And I have no city water. All I have is a well. I can't get city water. And that well will be maybe about 200 feet from this. And it's just going to be all dusty, and my well's going to go dry for sure. And property value will go down too. Okay, I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maura O'Mealy.
He's right about
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Mauro Mealy, 1982 Rock Road. I've been on Rock Road now for about 10 years. I took a 1920 farmhouse and I renovated the whole thing, brought it up to date. It's one of the original doctor's offices for Grifton, and that's in the museum down there. That's how old this community is. I chose it because of the peaceful quiet, because you know the position I was in. I was a deputy, so I wanted to get away at times, and that's a great place for it. The question I have, which hasn't been answered, is Cannon Price Road. They used to use that. The logging trucks used to use that all the time to get over to East Hanrahan. And now they're not allowed to use Cannon Price because I think the weight is not enough to hold the trucks that go there. So now they're forced to go onto 118 and make a wide right turn onto Stokestown, which is right across the street from Rock Road, where the dump trucks are going to be coming in. And they're going to be coming in straight, to go straight across. And you got tractor trailers coming from the left, coming from the right. And they're just going to meet, and they just meet at that intersection. And I've seen it happen, and it's getting worse, and it's getting more to the case now. Even tractor trailers that are coming down, heading east on 118, take the loop road, Rock Road, so they don't have to make a left onto Stokestown. They can go straight across. So that's adding more. The loop road is less of a road than Cannon Price. So I don't understand how they can say Cannon Price is not good, but Rock Road's going to be able to handle 80,000 pounds per truck. And I think they said 2,000 or 200,000 cubic yards a month, whatever it was. Wasn't it 200 or 2,000, 20,000, something like that per month? Couldn't give us a number of how many trucks that's going to be. But we tried to figure it out, and it's coming around somewhere about 250 dump trucks. Now these are 16-wheel trucks with wheels that come down as the weight goes higher. And I drove a concrete truck, and I know what 80,000 pounds feels like. And coming down that road on a curve at Cletus Hart, now you come down from Jolly Old Field, they're going to get their trucks up to 45, 50 miles an hour, and they come into a 20-mile-an-hour curve, which is right outside my bedroom. So yeah, I've got major concerns about this, and it's going to tear up the road, it's going to tear up the area, and we're going to lose a quality of life. And if you're here to protect Pitt County residents, then that quality of life is going to go away if you approve this here. And the planning department, if they say no, and they had reasons why they didn't want it, I don't see why we're even talking about this now, because it didn't pass the planning department. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Michael Sanderbook? Michael Sanderbook? Jill Mealy.
I just signed my name so that I could vote against.
Okay.
I would only add to his, in the residence that we bought that's been there, I'm sorry. In the residence that we purchased, there was an original deep water well, and, I know that ran dry when they put the mine just up 118, and they had to re-drill deeper yet for another well. We are now gonna add one even closer that's going to dig in and disrupt our water tables again. And there are some of us that aren't on county water, and the time could come that we are not on county or Eastern Pines water, that we must provide water for ourselves. So for future, I am certainly against industrial in this residential area. If it must be done, the concern of the traffic, with the concern of Weyerhaeuser, with the traffic of all these large trucks coming right into these residential areas and making the turns, the roads are not adequate for. And if business, I'm all for business, and if business needs to come into this area, maybe they need to think about industrial thoroughfare from 118 to Hanrahan that's non-residential, that would come straight out. I don't know what compromise could be made, but I'm against. Thank you.
David Tootin stated he wished to be available for questions.
Hello, I'm David Toomer, Stroud Engineering. I'm the one that submitted the permit for Jones and Smith for the sand mine. I'll try to answer some of the questions that were brought before the board. As far as the ownership, that would be Jones and Smith, that was talked about before. The southern portion of the tract is going to be roughly 6.4 acres, which is what they're planning on mining. There will be no pumping out of that pit. They'll just be digging down as needed. There'll be no stockpiling on the site, so there'll be no diversion of any water of that nature as far as flooding. As was said earlier, the county is going to require us to go through and get a flood development permit, if I remember correctly. And through that permit, they're going to be using the flood damage prevention ordinance in order to satisfy the requirements for that permit. As far as sand mines that were close or near to the one that's here now, the one that was the closest that has now been deactivated was 0.2 miles away. It was roughly 18 acres, and it started on 2007 and went all the way to 2001, where it was deactivated. That pit, that sand mine pit, was also the one that used the same road going out to the highway. So the road itself is owned by my client, Jones and Smith. They own almost all the property to the west of the current tract they're looking at now, so it's a smaller tract that they currently have. As far as effects on the well, like I said, there'll be no pumping, so there'll be no drawing down of water. Now, the only other permit that was the closest would be 2.2 miles away, and that's on the south side of the river, and that's owned by Carolina Stone LLC. And then the second next closest active permit through the state is 2.9 miles away, and that's to the east of the property. And that's also owned by Carolina Stone LLC. So as far as permits in that particular area, there will be the only one within a 2-mile radius for the most part. Now, as far as potential usage, we're looking at probably about a 6-mile or 6-year usage. We're anticipating about 6 years, and then the mine. And this is all based off of estimates on how much is going to be used, because the sand will be brought out of the pit as needed for construction purposes. So it's not going to be a constant thing. It's whenever construction happens and when they need the material, that's when they're going to excavate it and move it to the site. Is there any questions that the board may have?
Question for planning, James Rhodes.
Commissioner Nunley, we may want to close the public
Sure,
hearing.
that's perfectly
and then
fine. This is
move
not
on to
for-
questions and.
That's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Okay.
Does Barton Horn have anything additional to add?
I have no further comment unless the commissioners have any questions for me.
Okay. And Alyssa or Tracy Banks, did you have anything further to add?
I just would like to reiterate what was already said. I would like to know.
If you'll need to come forward.
Alyssa Banks, daughter of current Hardison Street residences Dwight and Tracy Banks. They're at 1871 Hardison. I understand all of the negatives, but I would like for Rhodes to present the benefits of this project, because so far I can see none. My list of points was consecutive to what's already been said, though.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes, those individuals have been signed up to speak for the public hearing.
All right, at this time, we'll close the public hearing, and I believe Commissioner Nunley had some questions for Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rhodes, for the presentation. Recently, we've put particular focus before this board on environmental impacts, and in public comment, I heard a number of statements about groundwater wells, and I wonder what, if any, studies have been presented to the county as to whether or not the groundwater wells that are currently utilized, as it sounds like an exclusive water source by the residents in this area, how it would be affected. And I'm not talking about a study from, a study by someone that would be authorized to render a opinion that we would be able to accept as certifying that groundwater would not be affected, groundwater levels would not be affected by granting a groundwater well or sand mine in this location.
There have been no studies conducted.
There have been no studies. Okay.
Could I follow up on that? Because I had a question too. I understand that there's not going to be drawing up of the water, but we're talking about a large pond that's going to fill. And that would be, I think, the kind of study that we would be interested in knowing what sort of effect that has on existing wells. And it seems like that's going to sap a lot of the water in that particular surface. But that's not my area of expertise.
I'm not the expert either, but typically these type wells or these types of ponds, the groundwater, whatever level the groundwater, if it's 3 foot below ground elevation, that pond is going to fill at that same level. So it's not like it's going to be diverting water in there. Certainly, one thing that we hear quite often from some of the engineers, it does actually provide additional capacity during flood events to hold additional water. So that could be one benefit, but as far as reducing the groundwater level, if they're not pumping out, typically it stays the same. I'm not the absolute expert on that. We've not had a study conducted, but that's typically the way these are handled.
Commissioner Walhorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want, James, why did the planning board initially oppose this request?
They did not believe, they believed it was consistent with the land use plan, but did not believe this was an appropriate location for a sand mine.
And what convinced them?
What convinced them, I believe, primarily was the comments made at the planning board meeting, because we had a similar type public comment session.
Now, I think it was Kathy Westbrook. She made a very compelling case. Matter of fact, it's one of the most compelling cases I've heard against a situation like this since I've been on this board. She represented a lot of people that's in this audience, and she did it very well. Also, former County Commissioner Mary McLaughlin and former state representative, she sent a letter that was very compelling, very convincing, and listen to all the people that voiced their concern. I can't, within my mind, representing the people of Pitt County, I can't favor going along with this proposal. I would have to vote denial based upon what I've heard and the convincing evidence that was presented. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Perkins-Williams.
What concerns me about all of this, and sand mines are not a favorite of me, and I'm sure everyone on this board know it by now. But what convincing me is the water table and the quality of water, because there seems to me when the sand, even though it's not supposed to happen, the water table does change. I'm concerned that the quality of life of the residents as relates to the need for water is puzzling. And I just don't understand why we would upset a neighborhood where people have lived a long time and to support digging sand in an area where you already have dug a pond. Am I right about that?
There is one on site, yes.
And you stopped digging there, correct?
Correct.
What was the purpose for that?
They completed their permit, their active area in the state permit, so that particular mine was closed.
And they can't go back and dig in that same mine?
not without your permission and a state permit.
Well, doesn't happen always, but I'm very concerned about that, and I am concerned about opening new mines in area where the residents are already there. Very concerned about that. And I thought all the roads in Pitt County was paved, and then looking at these maps, it's not. That's concerning. And when you are going down a dirt road, you can't keep the sand and dirt and dust out. So, I'm not feeling positive about it. There are some other questions that I think I would, since we gotta have another little segment of this on this, since it's an open public thing, and we will be voting tonight. Well, I'm not in support of it.
Commissioner
I appreciate Commissioner McCawhorn's comments and very much echo them. I did want to express some concern for what I also think is that use of Rock Road. I think we had several residents speak about the trucks driving, and that seems to me like that someone wanting to do heavy industry might consider a different way of approaching that industry than going right down the middle of a residential area. And it looks to me like it's solid residential in that approach.
Commissioner Albright, in my experience, when the sand mine opens, the trucks and the safety is a problem. And having lived in an area where this exists, you can't control children all the time. So I'm very concerned about that, and that's my first priority along with the water.
It seems like we might consider that study. We have a lot of sand mines in the county. We might consider
We do have a lot.
that doing an actual study of the soil, the effect of the mine on the water table might be something that we would consider, so that we have that on the table when this comes before us again.
I would like to, before we move forward, Mr. Attorney, since this is somewhat of a new policy that's been implemented, if you could just maybe explain the process for the rest of the board.
And what you'd need to find in order to approve, or what you'd need to find in order to deny.
Yeah, absolutely, Mr. Chairman. I'll certainly try. So first point I would highlight is that this is a new process that we've recently changed, and this is purely a legislative decision, which means that this board can use your discretion into approve or deny. There doesn't have to be any special findings of facts or conclusions of law. So you have a wide discretion and latitude. If you'd like to approve it, then you would adopt the staff prepared consistency and reasonableness statement, which is on page 31 of your materials. And if you would like to deny it, you also need to adopt a consistency and reasonableness statement. And to that point, you could find that it is consistent with your plan and also unreasonable and not in the public interest due to reasons stated here tonight: noise, traffic, potential impacts to the water table, and then find denial. So if you'd like to approve it, I would recommend you adopt the staff consistency and reasonable statement. If you'd like to deny it, we're going to have to kind of fashion our own consistency, reasonable statement. Consistency, you can vote to deny and find it consistent with the plan, but I would recommend you find it unreasonable and not in the public interest for certain enumerated conditions that aren't findings of fact. So I hope that explained the process. If not, I'll try to answer any follow-up questions.
When you say finding of fact, how do you define fact then with impact on a residential area? When you say number of houses and volume of traffic, is that not getting us towards unacceptable circumstances for a residential neighborhood?
So I think the answer to your question is, in the former context, the quasi-judicial context, we would need evidence presented by someone competent to testify on that. In this case, we're not making findings of facts.
Okay, gotcha.
I would simply, for me to craft a consistency reasonableness statement, would need the board, if denying it, to articulate some reasons that, to put on my legal hat, it's a lower threshold, a lower burden for this board to establish than a finding of fact.
Thank you.
How long are they gonna be digging in this hole?
6 years. Six.
Huh?
6 years.
6 years of excavation is what I heard.
Mike, got a question.
Yes, sir.
So when we reject this, and when it becomes official, how does this differ from what happened on Abbott's Farm?
Commissioner Colson, the answer to that question is Abbott's Farm. It was a subdivision approval that was denied. That is a separate process that we haven't discussed at all, an administrative process. And the burden to defend that is different than the legislative process, which this is, and also different than the quasi-judicial process, which a sand mine used to be. So the answer to your question is it's a different legal
Burden to
process.
The burden to defend, you just answered it with that.
Okay, well, I'll be quiet then.
Say that again, Tom.
The burden to defend is easier with this than the one that I pointed out with Abbott's
Right.
Farm. I understand that. That makes sense to me.
Any other questions or comments? At this time, entertain a motion.
Motion to deny, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It has been moved and properly second.
Does he need to state the reasons at this time?
I believe so.
I would recommend that this board, if inclined to deny it, then to adopt a statement finding it consistent with the staff report as shown for the reasons on page 31 of your agenda, but then differing in the staff report and finding it unreasonable and not in the public interest due to noise, traffic, and potential impacts to the water table, which may impact those in the vicinity using well water, in a statement to be crafted after the fact, and if you would authorize the chair to sign such a statement with those being the general parameters.
What about safety to the children, for the children?
I'm happy to include any reasons that the board
Absolutely.
would like to throw at.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And you mentioned flooding concerns?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Because of time element, I'd like to vote for denial based upon the comments that Ms. Kathy Westbrook made, that was representing
In all these pages.
the entire, approximately the entire body that's here. And she gave some statements, and I can go through them again, but because of the lack of time, I wouldn't. But that's my reason for denying.
We have the statements. I don't think you need to go for it.
It has been moved and properly second. If everyone can vote, please.
When you vote yes, that's to approve the motion, correct?
It's yes.
Change it.
It's yes.
Hmm?
We need to change
We
it.
need to change it.
Some of us are confused.
Could you
Can
click?
change your clicker
I'll
before
move to
he.
the next slide.
So a vote of yes is to deny,
Right.
and a vote of no is against the motion to deny.
Okay.
So a vote of yes is to deny.
I thought I was right. Yes.
You got it the other
You
way.
got mixed up here.
Wait a minute. I'm voting,
You got mixed up.
I'm voting tonight.
Okay.
Motion to
So
deny
change-
passes.
So you should be yes.
So you,
Yeah.
you just voted wrong.
It passed. Well,
But you-
can he request to have his vote changed?
Yes. So the record will reflect that it was 7-1 with Melvin's vote as a yes in favor of denial.
You made a motion.
Moving on to items for report. Mr. Hill.
Good evening.
We want to see, even though everybody did not speak, this is our community.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Hill?
Good evening, Chairman Fitzpatrick, Commissioners, Madam Manager. Tonight, I bring to you the October 2022 Tax Collection Report. The Pitt County fiscal year to date, July 1st through October 31st, 2022 combined collection rate for real and personal property is 66.71%. The combined rate 1 year ago for real and personal property was 70.8%, 80%. Pitt County Tax Administration continues to pursue all outstanding taxes using the necessary remedies available through the North Carolina General Statutes. It is my recommendation for the board to approve the October 2022 tax collection report as presented. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
I second.
It's been moved and second. If everyone could vote, please. Motion passes.
Good evening, Chairman Fitzpatrick, and it's been a pleasure to work with you for the last 4 years. Vice Chair Albright, it's been a pleasure to work with you for the last 4 years as well. Tonight I bring you the October 2022 finance report for the general, solid waste, and EMS funds. We are 4 months into the fiscal year at this point, or 33.33% of the year. For the general fund, we collected 44.02% of anticipated revenues and spent 35.29% of budgeted expenditures. Solid waste, we have collected 58.62% of revenues and spent 29.04%. EMS, we have collected 42.01% and spent 34.68%. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, it's my recommendation for the board to approve the October 2022 monthly finance report as presented.
So moved.
Second it.
It's been moved and properly second. If everyone could vote.
Tonight, I'm joined by Jennifer Roman. She's our art coordinator. She's been with us for a week now. She started her second week. Jennifer comes from us from the tax office, and she is a ECU graduate. She graduated from there in 2021, and she's working on her MPA. So I'm pleased to have her tonight. We're going to present this together. And this is an American Rescue Plan update, and also proposed amended grant project ordinance. And as far as the grant project ordinance, you should have a paper copy that was handed out to you tonight that replaces your agenda packet. And with that, I turn it over to Jennifer.
Good evening. As Mr. Kuhn has stated, I have been with the county since March of 2022, and I am delighted.
You might want to pull your
Pull your
mic
mic
down.
down
I'm
just a
sorry
little
to
bit.
apologize.
No worries. Good evening. As Mr. Kroom stated, I have been with the county since March 2022, and I'm delighted for this opportunity. I look forward on playing a key part in Pitt County, seeing it grow, and of course, achieving the ARPA goals and better serving our citizens. With that being said, I'm going to go over the recap of dates and deadlines. As we know, Pitt County received its first two payments in the sum of $17,553,507 in May and in July. And then we also have some key important dates to keep in mind. December 31, 2024, all funds must be obligated. December 31st, 2026, all funds must be spent. December 31st, 2031, records will be in retention.
This is a recap from August 2022 that I presented back in August. Can y'all see the PowerPoint? Okay. This is just lets us know that we have allocated $35.1 million. We've have obligated $29,431,000. We had a remaining obligation of $5,669,000. In actual expenditures, we had $1,726,670.38, and that was as of June 30th. And just to let you know, what we do is we take a period ending, we reconcile it, we report that to the U.S. Treasury, and then we reconcile that to our budget. And so we are a little bit behind as our reporting date. So that, I'll turn it back over to Jennifer for a few more slides.
Have some recaps of board actions from August 22, 2022. We approved the proposed ARPA project request and eligibility determination process, authorized the release of the proposed ARPA application, authorized adjustments to cost center allocations, deferred hazard pay requests until the end of the obligation process. The application for the ARPA went out in August 29, 2022, with the application closing on September 29, 2022, and was reviewed October 2022. November 2022, application awards and grants project ordinance considered by Pitt County Board of Commissioners. I also have some nonprofit application updates. We received 27 applications, and they are available for review upon request for the board. With that being said, we were requested $25,276,714. With that, we have allocated over 1.8 to businesses and employment assistance. Applications were reviewed by our senior leadership team, legal, and NCACC consultant, Alex. Objective standards in considering each request. The review process was during October and November of 2022. Recommendations to board November 21st, 2022. And I will pass it on to Mr. Sam Cream. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. The nonprofit applications, the criteria and the rubric that we used, there was 13 criteria that we looked at and we used. Just to highlight just a few of them, one of the things we looked at was an eligible expense under ARPA. Was it permitted under North Carolina law? Was there suitable timelines in the application packets? Did the organizations align their goals with the county goals? Will the applicants serve moderate and low-income communities? And also the number of people served and that would benefit from these nonprofits. And here's a list of the 27 applications that were received that represents the more than $25 million that were asked. And like Jennifer said, these applications are available for review upon the board's request. It is our recommendation from the senior leadership team that for these nonprofits, for 3 of them to be considered so we can conduct risk assessments and possibly contract with these individuals. And these will fall under the Business and Employment Assistance Cost Center. And these 3 organizations are the Greenville-Pitt County Convention and Visitors Bureau for $600,000, the Boys and Girls Club of the Coastal Plains for $750,000, A Time for Science for $500,000. And looking at these applications, there's a few that can possibly fall into some other categories, and they could be housing and homelessness and infrastructure. And what we'd like the board to do is just defer them decisions to a later date as we can see what our allocations and our obligations run in the future. So with that being said, one of the things in preparing for tonight, we prepared this slide to kind of show where the ARP update would be as of today. And draw your attention to just a few of the cost centers. Broadband connectivity, we originally allocated and obligated $8 million. And what we'd like to do is break that out as far as our obligation for the Great Grant would be $3,950,000. And we also would like to move the remaining obligation to $4,050,000 as we see how the board wants to allocate that in the future based on what the needs come out of broadband. Community health, we have pending board action on community centers. We've talked about that, and I think there's supposed to be some proposals coming back. So we break that out. Employee health and safety, we originally, in August, we set aside $500,000 for hazard pay. We had to dip a little bit into that as we spent money on our incentive pays for vaccinations. So that would bring that number down to $471,334. And the rest of the cost centers stay aligned to where they were at in August as of this point right now. Possible adjustments. Recognize total ARPA allocations of $35,107,015 in amending the grant project ordinance by adding $7,015 in ARPA funds to the employee health and safety cost center. Whenever the board has taken all actions, we were working with a number of $35,100,000. But actually, what we have actually received is $35,107,015. Projects considered but not allocated and now removed out of the ARPA plan would be $850,000 in the HVAC replacements, $250,000 in public health canopy, and these two projects will be considered under our capital improvement plan. There's also $450,000 that was associated in our ARPA administration and other eligible projects. And this was $450,000 for the assistant district attorney's positions, in which they were not willing to sign a subrecipient agreement. So, it's part of our recommendation is to pull that money out or to say it's not included anymore in ARP. The next project is to consider but not projects that we consider but not allocated, and we proposed, not allocated or proposed, is $250,000 for the county facilities fixture replacements. And we do want to keep this project in our other eligible ARP expenditures. And you will see these are the water fountains that you can see where people can go up and fill their water bottles. And talking, to our county engineer, this is something that employees have been asking about and are excited if we can offer that. And so if we make these adjustments tonight, the cost centers will fall out what you see here. We'll need to make one correction. The $10 million that's obligated under community health and pending board action on community centers, that needs to shift to the right to the remaining obligations. And if we do that, we will recognize $35,107,015 in allocations. Our obligations will actually go down to $16,378,666, and our remaining obligations would be $18,728,349. And what we've actually spent as of September 30th, we have increased that to $1,814,188.26. And in your proposed amended grant project ordinance, you'll see where we have broken out every project now. Some of these are allocated and some of them are unallocated. But this represents the $35,107,015. By amending the grant project ordinance, It amends and replaces the original capital project ordinance from September 13th, 2021. It recognizes the full allocation of the $35,107,015. It elects $10 million standard allowance for revenue replacement. It will take effect today and will expire December 31st, 2026, or when funds have been obligated and expended, whichever occurs first. It identifies projects, expenditure categories, ARP allocation for multi-year basis, and also directs copies of the budget ordinance to be furnished to the budget officer, finance officer, and the tax assessor for direction in carrying out their duties. Requested action tonight. I'm asking the board to approve the proposed adjustments to the cost center allocations, approve the proposed amended grant project ordinance, consider the nonprofit applications, and this would be approved as recommended. You can approve an alternate allocation, or you can defer consideration to a later date. And with that, I'll take any questions, or Jennifer can help us take any questions that you might have.
Are we gonna get a copy of this?
The PowerPoint, I can definitely furnish you a copy.
'Cause I was looking hard to find it in my notebook. It wasn't there.
Yeah.
We can send a copy of the PowerPoint to the full board first thing in the morning.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Explain what you meant with the DA positions.
Yes, we reached out to contract with the district attorney's office and asked them to be a subrecipient, which means that they would have to comply with ARPA requirements, provide any information that Treasury would have for them, and they would have to comply to the same rules that we would have to comply to. And they refused to do that in a subrecipient award.
And can I add to that as well, and Jordan Smith may wish to chime in as well. At the time that request was made, they were working through a COVID backlog, and then a period of time passed from the time that this board allocated funds for that purpose until they were ready. In that interim period of time, the General Assembly allocated additional positions to the Assistant District Attorney's Office as well. And as a result, they received those positions, and then they directed us to the Administrative Office of the Courts to work out the agreement. And the Administrative Office of the Courts was not willing to sign the subrecipient agreement under ARPA funds. And so they're continuing to address their backlog. And Jordan may have something different to add to that. But any individual or entity that receives funds from us through ARPA has to comply with the ARPA subrecipient agreement. And I think based on the circumstances at the time, the state was not willing to do that.
Yeah, I would just kind of chime in to add that it was the North Carolina Administrative Office of the Courts who refused to do the subrecipient agreement, and not so much the locally elected District Attorney Ferris Dixon, but so the state, but not local District Attorney, that refused to agree to be a subrecipient. Just wanted to throw that point of clarification out.
Ferris was grateful for our efforts.
That needed to be.
Commissioner McLaurin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have a problem in approving this, but I think you said you had a copy of all the nonprofit organizations you could send to the county commissioner. I would like
Yes.
to request a copy of all those.
That would be in the PowerPoint that I will provide to you.
Oh, you have it down on the copy of the nonprofit organization?
We can get that to you as well.
Well, we
Okay.
have a list, but if you want copies of all of them, we can provide you a copy of all the applications.
Okay, very good.
I don't know, the application just
The chairman has asked me to just do a quick recap of what you've heard to make sure everybody understands what they would be voting for this evening. It would really be three things. It would be to approve from your nonprofit pool of applicants. If you adopt the recommendations, it would be to approve $600,000 for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, $750,000 for the Boys and Girls Club, and $500,000 to A Time for Science. That will utilize your $1,850,000 from your nonprofit business and employment allocation category. The second thing he's asking you to do is to adjust your cost centers so that you reflect the full we've been loosely saying 35.1 million. Those who know me know that we do this to the penny, and so does Sam, and so this will reflect the full 107.15, which adjusts all of your pennies a little bit. It adds that extra $7,000 into your employment assistance category. It reduces what's remaining for hazard pay to a number slightly smaller because we utilize that for vaccination pay. And then it takes $250,000 for plumbing and fixture improvements that the board talked about in its workshop in January, and it puts that under other eligible projects, which is half of what was freed up from the assistant district attorney positions. And then finally, the third thing he's asking you to do is adopt the grant ordinance, because before you can expend any funds, you have to have an ordinance that documents with particular legal language how the money should be spent. That ordinance is in front of you, and it lays out a table that shows the allocated and unallocated expenditures consistent with the chart that was in that PowerPoint. Does that make sense to everyone?
Was there not one other thing? Wasn't the $10 million shift?
So yes, so that's just for illustrative purposes in your chart. There was $10 million that you have in community health. This board talked about allocating that money for 2 community center recreation centers. Because we're not under contract for that money, it's not in the obligated section. It would go for visual purposes in your remaining obligation.
Okay.
Unless there's any further discussion, we entertain the motion at this point.
So moved.
So move. Second or whatever. Whichever
Somebody
one first
moved and
and
somebody
last.
seconded.
That's
We're
right.
gonna, if everyone could vote, please.
Always late. Chris.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Moving on to the manager's report, and I've been told this will be brief.
Pressure's on.
You've got
Thank
20 bucks, right?
Thank you for your manager's report this evening. I'm going to go off script a little bit and welcome in the audience Benji Holloman and Mark Smith, our future county commissioners. Warmest welcome for attending our meeting this evening. We look forward to working with you for the next 4 years. Thank you so much for being here. Our next meeting dates, December 5th at 6 p.m. and December 19th in this same room. Item B, just to make you all aware that Angie Watson in our public health department was awarded a statewide recognition as diabetes coordinator. She received the Diabetes Coordinator Statewide Healthcare Provider Award, which is a big deal, and we are thankful for her dedication and commitment to diabetes prevention within our community. Item C is the NCACC Legislative Goals Conference. Several of commissioners, myself and Jordan Smith, attended the Goals Conference, and I'll provide an opportunity for any commissioner who attended to share any remarks if they would like.
Well, I was really disappointed with one of the goals that were not considered, and that was the one under justice and public safety, where it deals with seeking increased state funding for North Carolina courts, including reinstating funding for specialty courts and pretrial release program, as well as funding to support e-filing for 50BBs. And I think the 50Bs concerning domestic violence orders, I believe. I was really disappointed that that is not one of the goals we voted on. It was taken out and then it was resubmitted as a new goal, and it still failed. With our district attorney supporting pretrial release program, and Judge Blunt also with the specialty courts and all that, I was really disappointed in that not being one of the goals that we are going to be moving forward with for the whole Commissioners Association. other than that, okay.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, I think that the conference was a very successful one in that we did some very important items, and we did it in an expeditiously manner. And I was happy to serve as the voting delegate during that conference, and I just think overall it was a good conference, and people participated well, and we went through the procedures very good. So I'm appreciative to have served in that capacity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The conference was quick. It was very impactful, and the only thing that I would have thought we would look at would be the safety feature at schools, and that sort of thing, because there tends to be a lot of violence within the community as it relates to education in school. And it did not come up at the legislative conference, but on a whole, the entire conference seemed to be together on what was presented. And it also covered the fact that we should talk to each other, Chris, and we should try to get along over here, and we should respect each other, and that kind of thing. Because there are a lot of differences on boards, as well as how we should meet that difference. And that was very interesting. But the conference really was a decent conference, but I was disappointed that no one submitted the impact of education and violence at the educational level within the public sector.
And were you finished? Okay. And Mr. Chairman, the county attorney will provide a report on our legislative goals, a status update, probably in the month of December, in advance of your anticipated breakfast with your legislative delegation in January. So you'll be hearing more about those particular goals.
And the adopted goals by the association are going out in the next Friday packet, I believe, so look forward to that.
The next item D, if you are coming in the county administration building in the next few weeks and months, you will see the sidewalk improvements along People's Way. You may recall this board dedicated $50,000 in your budget this year for enhanced handicap accessibility. And the contract has been awarded to East Coast Grading and Utilities, LLC. They will begin that sidewalk project under contract within budget to be completed prior to April of 2023. So you may see some activity and construction outside of this building. Item E is Envision Pitt County 2045. You have 2 public input meetings. That's our review of our comprehensive land use plan. The next one is Tuesday, November 29th at the Community Schools and Recreation Building at Alice F. Keene District Park, and then following that on Thursday, December 1st at North Pitt High School in Bethel. And that is all that I have.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Moving on to items for consent at this time.
Motion to
Entertain a
approve,
motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. If we could all vote, please.
I'm going to go down front for this, if you will allow.
Okay.
PowerPoint. Let me grab my.
Mr. Attorney, could I please have the timer?
I may go down front. Your first item on your items for decisions has to do with opioid settlement funding, and I think it'll just be easier if I maneuver the PowerPoint from down here. I can speak quickly and move my slides as opposed to having someone else do it. So we are back today with a follow-up report on your opioid settlement funding. You'll recall the timeline, and we've discussed this in the past. We started with a lawsuit filed in February of 2018, entered into a memorandum of agreement in September of last year, national settlement agreement November of last year, $26 billion for defendants, and $8.8 million coming to Pitt County government over the next 18 years. We've received 3 payments of first-year funding of $338,000, $731.50. The first time, you can see the second payment in September and the third in November. So those three payments total our first year funding to be spent this year. We had, as required by law, the municipality's input meeting on October 25th, 2022, and then we're back to you today with recommendations following the report from the community stakeholders and input from that municipality's meeting. You've seen this chart before. It just shows the schedule of payments that the county will receive over the next 18 years. And then our allowable uses. So option A uses are recommended. They require no further expenditure on a detailed strategic plan because these are already evidence-based efforts to address the opioid epidemic. And you can do any one of those 12 programs, and I've discussed them at length with you in the past, anywhere from addiction treatment, recovery support services, reentry programs, naloxone distribution, post-overdose response teams, and syringe service programs, and other harm reduction efforts. There are also allowable uses under option B that require a formal strategic plan, and there are three categories that could fall within: treatment, prevention, or other strategies, including first response, leadership planning, and coordination. To recap, we are so grateful for the efforts of our community stakeholders who at the beginning of this process all got together with the coordination of PICSA, Pitt County Coalition Against Substance Use, and they met 3 times. They met in April, May, and June of this year, well ahead of any state memorandum of understanding telling us that we needed to get together and do any sort of collaborative process. We did that on our own, and your participants are listed there. We had dozens of participants in the community. The best part about those meetings to me was to have all the stakeholders in the room knowing who each other were and saying, oh, I didn't know that you did that already, and coordinating. That group gave itself a name, the Pitt County Opioid Action Committee, PCOC, and they will continue to meet long after these funds are expended, which is just good for our community overall. And as a result of their stakeholder meetings, they presented a comprehensive report, which you've received months ago. They provided it to us in July, that recommended $1.5 million in expenditures as set forth on your screen. $938,000 for a community engagement center, similar to what you've heard of as a pit stop. That would include an opportunity for fellowship, for a recovery resource center, for addiction treatment and other treatment. Harm reduction efforts at $344,000, which is the full budget for ECM for Change syringe access program. $60,000 for a recovery resource center, and then $167,000 for prevention, for an overdose response team, work with Pitt County schools, coordination of that PCOC, and opioid misuse initiatives, such as Lock Your Meds campaign and other training programs. And then this board also heard from Pitt Community College and a request from Mr. Ernest Lee for $100,000 per year to the reentry program, a very clear option within the option A uses. We went ahead and we had our municipalities meeting in October, as required by the North Carolina Memorandum of Understanding, and we had present representatives from Bethel, Greenville, and Winterville. We had citizens representatives from ECU, ECU Health, ECU Engage NC, PICSA, and Port. And our comments and discussions in that meeting dealt primarily with 3 things: prevention efforts and collaboration with school. We heard very loud and clear that in the continuum, we cannot forget prevention, and starting at the younger ages in collaboration with the schools. We talked a lot about clinician training and an ECU Health Addiction Specialist Fellowship. In order to treat the folks, Pitt County has identified, and the stakeholders have identified, that we need specially trained folks to treat the people in our community who will stay in our community, who specialize in addiction. And then they also talked about access to care in our rural communities and how we're going to reach out to folks. And so based on that, these are my recommendations. Taking into consideration the municipality input and the PCOC report, I recommend that the board consider allocating from first year funds $100,000 to Pitt Community College for use in their reentry program. It fits within the NCMOA option A. You can disregard my national settlement schedule. I intended to take that out and did not, but that's the corollary in the National Settlement Schedule, which is really not necessary since it's incorporated within the NCMOA. Recommend $105,000 to PICSA for prevention, education, and programming under option A, section 6 and 8. Recommend $100,000 for harm reduction services to ECM for Change under section 9 of option A, and recommend $500,000 to ECU Health for an addiction specialist fellowship. That will be the seed money for a fellowship program that within a short number of years will become self-sustaining. And that specialist will provide treatment in our own community, and that over time, once that program is established, the payment for those services will make this a self-sustaining program. So we would be the beginning seed money of a very impactful program going forward right here in our community, so that we have the folks who can provide the treatment that is so necessary. So of those payments, that gave us $1,085,160.57 in first-year funding. The total recommendations suggested are $805,000, which leaves remaining $280,160.57 in first-year funding. And remember, there's no time deadline to spend these funds. So these funds, I would recommend carry over until next year so that they can be part of future allocations towards this community engagement center as we further develop that concept. That's a critical need within our community, and one that we've been working so closely with Angela Lampson at ECU, Dr. Silvernail, but still needs further development. The Resource Recovery Center would be part of that. And I think if we reserve this $280,000, add it to next year's funding, I think we'll be able to make a significant headway towards getting that community engagement center off and running. At the same time, we will have started training through an addiction specialist fellowship. We'll have PICSA doing that education on prevention, and we'll have ECM for Change continuing to meet the community, that harm reduction, where they are. They are very trusting of that program. So you have three options before you. You can recommend, you can approve the recommendations for these first-year allocations, which would, if you approve those in concept, that will essentially direct me to bring you back a resolution next meeting authorizing the expenditures as required by the NCMOA, and then direct me to work with the recommended recipients and authorize me to enter into those subrecipient agreements, similar to ARPA, but different because this is under opioid, for the use, accounting, reporting, and the grant requirements associated with that funding. Alternative two is you can choose different allocations if you like, right? I will never come before you asking you to rubber stamp anything. I'll give you my recommendations based upon my research and what I believe, but this is ultimately your decision. And third thing you can do is if you decide you need additional time, you can defer consideration to a later time and give me further direction about what you'd like to see. And I can bring that back to you. With that, the board is open for discussion and action.
I'd like to make a motion to approve first.
Second.
First
It
vote.
has been moved and properly second. If everyone could vote. Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Keen?
Good evening, excuse me, good evening again. I think my voice is
Oh
about
my
right.
goodness, you're going worse.
I sat quiet too long.
Yes.
We do bring
The
to you
exercise.
tonight a recommendation for the naming of the initial softball field in the district park. And this is coming from our Pitt County Community Schools and Recreation Advisory Council as directed in the policy for the naming and dedication of parks and recreation areas. For many years prior to the availability of funding for our community schools and recreation center and the park, our seniors advocated and played a key role in trying to get the center, and then after we got the center, trying to get a park. And our senior game softball players utilized fields in our schools. We used municipal parks and recreation fields. But I can tell you, we were last on the list. And when everybody else was finished with their practice or games, et cetera, then we got the fields, which were primarily late Friday afternoons and Saturday mornings. So that gives you a little background and why they were so excited when we finally had funding for the park and they knew a softball field was going to be one of the first amenities that we would build. We did promise them at that time that on at least one of those fields they would have first priority instead of last priority. They worked very hard along with us. Many of you know they talked to you, they came to meetings, they made donations, and once we got the park, some of you remember all of that property was totally wooded. So even with the best clearing, we spent the first 2 or 3 years digging small logs and stumps out of the softball field and the 4 soccer fields. That was just natural, that had to be done. Many of them worked along beside us. You also remember that we didn't have the money for sprigging or certainly turf, and so we had to plant seeds. Well, as you know, in your own yard, we were dealing with the softball field and 4 soccer fields, so there was many days spent clearing and then covering the spots where the grass didn't grow. We had to replant it. So our seniors were there all along with us, working beside the staff, helping make those fields what they are today. They also never lost the vision for the fact that we would have a field and it would be a very nice field. They represented us on the local, state, and national level, again being the last priority for fields. For these and many other reasons, our advisory council has developed the recommendation, approve that, and bring to you the recommendation to name the first field, the Greenville-Pitt County Senior Games softball field, and to designate with signage those seniors who have made, and people in the community have made donations over the years, and we can acknowledge that on that softball field.
Mr. Chairman, let's spare more. I approve with the motion.
Do you need a second?
We do.
I do.
It's been moved and properly second. We can all vote. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Gallagher.
Yes, the next 2 items on your agenda are somewhat related. You may recall several years ago, back around 2007, the county was using the interim foreclosure process, and it acquired several properties throughout the county for non-payment of taxes, and we have been holding those properties for some time. We're now attempting to get those properties back into the tax base so that they can be utilized and relieve the county of the burden to maintain those lots. Item number 4 in your packet on page 90 is a letter from the city of Greenville. The county in that process owns parcel numbers 04578 and 04579, actually on page 81. And they are right adjacent to Thomas Foreman Park in West Greenville. The city of Greenville would like to have those lots, and they have offered to pay the full tax value for each of those lots, and I would recommend that you sell them to the city for that price.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and second. Motion passes.
The next 3 parcels are at 421 Nash Street, 515 Ford Street, and 517 Ford Street. This board previously approved that they be auctioned on Gov Deals. They were. We asked that they be sold to the highest bidder and authorized the attorney to prepare those paperwork.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. If everyone can please vote.
Good evening. This first item is another project at our Public Health Department. This is the second phase of an office renovation as they continue to get rid of some of their paper files. Some areas have opened up to provide some additional office space for their staff. This is a project that's going to be funded with State Capital Infrastructure Fund, otherwise known as SCIF funds. We bid the project out, and the low bidder was Custom Building Company here in Pitt County. The total bid was $146,885, and we want to include a 10% contingency, bringing the total to $161,573.50. So tonight, we're asking for authorization for the manager to sign the contract with CDC for this project.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved in second. Motion passes.
All right, the second item is a contract for the work at the Pitt County Courthouse. This is for the architecture work. As you recall, we had an architect that came and did a study for us as far as looking at areas within the county that we could renovate or do additions to. One of those identified was an area within the courthouse to add an additional district courtroom, and also the Register of Deeds space, which is now vacated. So this is a contract. We did RFQ process. JKF Architecture was selected by the committee. The total cost of the project would be 10% of whatever the construction costs are. Their anticipated cost to the architect is $222,560. Recommending these be used with ARPA funds. We followed all the ARPA procurement regulations on this project. Once we get bids on both projects, they'll be bid separately as part of the project. Once those funds are identified as far as how much it will cost, we'll bring that back to the board and determine if it's over the $1.6 million that's within the pot of money for ARPA. We will talk about where maybe the additional funds may come from at that time. So asking for authorization for the manager to sign that contract as well.
Move for authorization.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
Motion passes.
Your next item is appointment to the Pitt Area Transit System Advisory Board on page 138 of your materials, and it is being recommended to appoint Melissa Marlock and Elizabeth Stalls for the unexpired terms of vacant seats. Recommendations letters are in your packet, and both require an exception to your rules of appointment procedure based on residency, but due to the necessity of the attribute.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It has been moved in second. Motion passes.
The next appointment is to the Human Relations Council to appoint Sharon Rochelle as the social services representative on that board.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved in second. Motion passes.
And then your last appointment this evening, it is recommended to appoint Mr. Jay Bastardo to the Pitt Greenville Convention and Visitors Authority. This is an appointment following a recommendation from the city of Greenville.
Motion to approve.
Second.
It has been moved in second. Everyone can please vote. Motion passes. All right, moving on to commissioner comments. Commissioner Ward,
No comment.
Commissioner Huggins.
Well, I do have a comment. I want to reiterate the envision for Pitt County. I want to invite the citizens. This is an opportunity for you to come out and participate, give your input into the envision for Pitt County to 2045. So there's 2 meetings. So I hope that the citizens will take part in one of those meetings. I also want to thank Commissioner Albright, Commissioner Fitzpatrick. It was a pleasure serving with you.
Thank you.
So also want to congratulate, add my congratulatory remarks to the governor's recipients. So I want to say congratulations to all of those recipients from the governor's award. So, and want to include the employee of the month too. Congratulations to her. I think that takes care of all of mine.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chair?
Yeah, a couple of things. I've been here for a year, and Mike's never used that gavel. He's run this thing really well. And I watch this every week. When is he going to bring that down? But he hasn't had to. I admire that. It's a great job, and I will miss that aspect of it. I appreciate the support of my colleagues on this board, especially the manager. And our clerk over here was a cover lady on a magazine a couple of months ago. I don't know if that ever got talked about. Was that really nice spread? Yes. Congratulations. We have so much going on positive in this county. 4 years is in some ways a long time, short time depending, but you know, COVID made it seem real drawn out for us, and it's hard to believe that we got through that. And we had some issues during that, but we were led by John Silvernail, who did an extraordinary yeoman's job, and our health professionals in this county. It's unfortunately, it might be too easy to forget what went on during that period right there, and I hope that we daily keep them in mind for what they've done to keep us healthy in this county. And I'm really very much impressed with economic development and what Kelly Andrews has done, what this board has done to support her, and I'm really grateful to have been a part of that move, and thank you.
I would just briefly like to say that it's been an honor and a privilege to work with each and every one of you. And I would echo what Mr. Vice Chair said. These 4 years have gone awful quick, and I will certainly be thinking of all of you during budget workshop. So enjoy.
Early in the morning.
Commissioner Nunley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, just want to thank Commissioner Albright and Commissioner Fitzpatrick. You know, in professional life, it's rare that you really truly get to serve with people that you both respect intellectually and professionally. And service with you two, it's a sad day to see you both go. It felt like your leadership really helped steer this board in a really positive direction in some really trying times, and I feel like with your leadership and collaboration with our management team, we're collaborating across all sectors much better, and so I think the sky's the limit. But you all helped set that foundation, and so thank you to you both, and thank you both for your colleagueship and friendship.
Commissioner Perkins-Williams.
I won't say the funny things I said behind your back, Mike Fitzpatrick. But it has been a pleasure to serve with you two guys. I think you've offered a lot. We've learned a lot. And I like to say to the persons who was a part of making that nomination, I like to say thank you. What I do for the community is with my heart and not because of recognition. And I certainly appreciate the thoughtfulness that you gave it when you made that nomination, and to the governor for accepting it. So I think Mike Fitzpatrick need to share some of those shoes with the fellows, and then we can move it on. Thank you.
Commissioner McLaurin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to congratulate Ann Huggins and Mary Williams, Chris Nunley for their re-election to this board. We certainly, I've been knowing Alice Albright. Some of you don't know this, but for years we have worked together doing my previous job at probation and parole, and Alice has always been a sound judgmental person, and I certainly appreciate that. I'm going to miss him. And certainly, Mr. Chairman, you have been very thorough, very thoughtful in your process of dealing with this board. I don't understand how you can keep that same smile. You're taking a picture, you keep that smile. And so that's commendable.
I'm also on the ABC board.
So we want to thank you for your leadership and your timely meetings.
Now he knows what this Ian was saying behind his back.
Commissioner Colson.
Well, on this last full meeting, I should have bet. That's an inside joke. No further comments.
Well, with anything additional questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
There you go. I'll give it the time to go.
Second it.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Motion Motion passes. And for Mr. Vice Chair, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.